My problem is, especially with some of the kids that I mentor, don't tell me what's not out here when you're not doing the research to find it. But you could tell me where you found that wig from, and you could tell me what datum Jordans come out. Now, that same Google search engine that you search for your wants, you need to search for your need. If you want to go to school and you need the money, then you need to go find you some money. What I do every year, I mentor kids ages 9 through 24. And now, actually, some of my kids are older than 24 because I've had them since they were little. And what I do is I expose them to a world of opportunity. I want them to dream bigger than their zip code. I never want them to be a product of their environment. And my program allows them to understand that their dreams are valid. You can be the next Kamala Harris. What we do is we do college tours, we do monthly educational programs. I even teach life-changing summer camp, pouring into them life skills that allow them to be better in the classroom. A lot of times we've been focused on the older group because they're quickly graduating. Really, it starts as a little child.
What's up, everybody? This is Marcel Clark. You know this is Hustle and Grow. I'm on with Jessica Brown today. How you doing, Jessica?
I'm great. How are you?
I am doing incredibly well. So, introduce yourself to my viewers. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, my name is Jessica Brown. I am the founder of College Gurl, which educates students and families around the nation on how to make the best informed decisions on paying for college. Additionally, I'm the president of the College Gurl Foundation, which is a nonprofit that exposes underserved Black youth to a world of opportunity to dream bigger than their zip code and become the next future leaders of tomorrow. I am also the author of How to Pay for College When You're Broke and children's book College Gurl's First College Tour.
Wow, so you do a lot in the space of like financial aid. So tell people why that's important. I mean, people don't really I guess some don't understand why, it's such an obstacle to actually even get higher education. Tell me about some of that. Like what made you get into that realm and want to help and give back?
Well, what made me get into that realm was originally graduating from Howard University. I wanted to be a sports reporter. And my mom was like, girl, you need a job because I'm not paying your rent anymore, right? So I got my first corporate job. I was working at an institution. I got it in financial aid, which was crazy because I got a D in math my entire life. But D was determined because I was determined to do better than I did. It just never worked out. So to get into financial aid and then go from one institution to now go working at Howard University as the special awards coordinator, I began to develop this passion for financial aid, just helping people stay in school, right? Helping people have the opportunity to have access to education and achieve their higher educational goals. So I use that communication degree to kind of be like, well, maybe I can really communicate financial aid, right? And how that works and what it's supposed to look like so we can minimize student loan debt. So, after leaving Howard, I wrote a book called How to Pay for College When You're Broke. And now I've been on 80 live news segments around the nation, BT, Fox, Good Morning America, Tamron Hall, you name it. I've probably been on it and just educating the world on its importance, right? Because if you're going to go to college and you graduate from college, right? When I graduated from college, I was barely making $36,000 a year, right? Nobody can live. A little dog can't even live off $36,000 a year, right? And to have student loan debt, like how would I ever pay this back? So just teaching people about the resources that are out there as every year over $100 million in scholarship money goes unclaimed. Just making sure our students, especially Black communities, understand that college is possible.
Yeah. This is a little off script, but tell me how you feel about the whole, loan forgiveness, Biden dismissing all these loans. I have to be honest, when I learned about, Biden forgiving loans, I was kind of pissed. Because I was sitting there like, I'm carrying student loans that, they're mostly paid off now. But I paid off like 80 grand. Why couldn't somebody else do the same thing? Like, what's your perspective on that?
Well, I'm waiting for him to forgive mine, okay?
She's
I'm out here doing the Lord's work. How do I feel about it? Well, one, how I feel is that he didn't come through on the promises that was made, right? The whole point was to cancel student loan debt. Now, of course, that wouldn't really have helped your generation because the majority have already paid off their student loans or are close to paying it off. right? But I think for number one, even if you cancel student loans, if there's no law in place that puts a cap on tuition at these institutions, what does it matter? We're just going to go back in a generational cycle and incur more debt. Like you're telling me to go to Georgetown undergrad and almost $90,000 a year. I mean, and you're not even coming out with $100,000 job. Like jobs are, as much as they try to say jobs are easy. Yeah, labor jobs are. If I wanted to work at Wendy's, if I wanted to work at Walmart, right? But in careers are not as easy as they seem, right? You have to use certain keywords in your resume in order for the HR to even populate your resume, right? And in hopes that you get a job. Like you're telling me after college, I applied to 152 jobs. And that was the best job that I can get. And I got bills to pay. Like, heck with student loans. What about my daily life? Like, I need gas to get to work. Like, I have to have a car. Like, I have to have a house. And that's why so many graduates are grown and still at home because they just can't afford the daily life and balancing all their bills. And God forbid you even think about being an entrepreneur and wanting to invest into that, right? Because you already ain't got no money. So how I think about Joe Biden and the canceling student loans, yes, that's great, but ultimately it's a bigger conversation of why are these college presidents getting paid $5 million a year? Why are these athletic departments getting all this money? When if you're getting all this money, why don't you give back and provide more scholarships for kids to make tuition free? In other parts of the world, like Sweden, they pay for all their residents to go to college for free. Why can't we? We are the United States of America.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. People don't even really understand how other countries really do invest in their citizens when it comes to education. I mean, that's an incredible point. When you think about your realm, I know for me, it was hard to even figure out how to apply for a scholarship and where I can find free money. Tell us more about that. Like, what do you see from your standpoint?
Well, I mean, of course, when you went to school, there wasn't really internet,
Right.
right? There wasn't a place that was a one-stop shop. You had to go to the counseling office. You had to go in the folder. You had to go see what paperwork they had for scholarships and so on and so forth. Now the world is at your fingertips. So my problem is especially with some of the kids that I mentor, don't tell me what's not out here when you're not doing the research to find it. But you could tell me where you found that wig from. You could tell me what day them Jordans come out. Now that same Google search engine that you search for your wants, you need to search for your needs in that same Google engine. If you want to go to school and you need the money, then you need to go find you some money. And that would be going on Google, joining groups like Instagram now has opened up a floodgate, right? You have certain people that are pages are just dedicated to scholarships, right? So it now becomes a stop scrolling on the internet and start doing more for your future. That's one of the biggest things I could definitely say. Like the information is out there, but we're not researching the right things up until it's the last minute. And then you have to make a bad financial decision in terms of trying to get a private loan at a crazy interest rate.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what you're pointing out is how when it's all said and done, if a young person wants to be successful in life, graduating with a whole load of student loans and debt basically handicaps their progression. So being smart enough to figure out exactly where you can find scholarships and free money is essential when it comes to education in college, right?
Yeah. And I mean, you got kids that's getting refunds, but not realizing that's money that has to be paid back, but you got a Gucci belt on for homecoming. And you ain't gonna have that Gucci belt when you graduate. Now you bought that Gucci belt on of like a 5% interest rate. You ain't even know.
You're funny.
At least buy a computer.
She said they taking their refund money and buying Gucci belts. I know. Hey, listen, that's I can't even. Like you said, at the end of the day, I think that's. I mean, when it comes to any kind of credit in general, but people happy about these little temporary pieces of material things that aren't going to last, but you're still paying for them down the road at a really stupid interest rate. So I mean, I think that's an incredible point. So what made you actually even like? I know you said that you were working in financial aid and you ended up on this side. What drives you? What's your passion behind this that make you want to be in this realm?
My passion behind making me wanting to be in this realm is seeing people be successful. Um, the good thing for me growing up is that I had one parent, of course, who didn't go to college, and another parent who did, went to Howard. And my parents had the financial means for me to do whatever I wanted to do. By the time I was 16, I was traveling and studying in China for 9 weeks. um but that's not everybody's reality, right? When I was in 10th grade and there was a college tour that opened up in our community, like my parents had the means to pay $600 or $700 for me to go on this trip, but not everybody has those means to be exposed to the world. So that, and having friends that I made in college from different economic statuses, and seeing that they never saw Howard until their parents took them on the bus from Chicago and dropped them off. Whereas I saw Howard as a little kid. I saw the Capitol as a little kid. And I grew up in New Jersey, right? I didn't grow up in Washington, D.C. And just seeing that everybody doesn't have the same opportunity. How can I be a pillar or beacon or vessel to help others see the world and find the means for them to do so that they can't say that they didn't have an opportunity. And I get it, not everybody can have those opportunities, right? But it's up to people in this world to give back and provide those type of opportunities.
Do you think that minorities in general face even larger obstacles when it comes to higher education?
For sure. For sure. Of course, I definitely believe that minorities are more financially challenged, right, than our counterparts, right? Well, our counterparts were taught early on growing up how to save money, right? Don't withdraw, deposit. Whereas we've been taught, hey, can you cash my check against nothing? It's Friday, I got bills to pay. Um, and it's so important that our communities specifically begins to be financially educated, so that we can gain generational wealth. We can have a home where we have a mortgage and we can stop renting and living in the projects, right? That we can put ourselves in better situations. Now, the issue again becomes back to the question I previously answered. We're not ever going to get there if we don't do the research to be in that position, if we don't do the work to get in that position. um, Being financially savvy comes from going to conferences, logging on the computer, watching YouTube, reading Washington Post, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, so that this way we can become financially educated. And it's not that the resources are not out there, it's just we are not going out there to seek these resources. So until we as a Black community begin to come together and teach our children and teach one another and the next one and the next one about the importance of financial literacy, will always be financially illiterate, especially with social media. You spending $1,200 on a pair of shoes you can't afford. But you ain't got no car, but you got $1,200 shoes. Make it make sense. Do them shoes come with a rocket to take you a little anywhere faster? But you got $1,200 shoes just because it's cool.
Right.
But priority wise, you're sleeping on somebody's couch when you could have had a $1,200 apartment. So it becomes to be about decisions in the Black community. We get so distracted by the lights and this, that, and the third, that we are not handling our priorities. So, and financial education is a priority. I can't be out here wearing $1,200 shoes and my savings account doesn't match that. And that's how I live my life.
So that's a real buzzword now in like 2024 and beyond. Everybody's on this whole generational wealth thing.
Yeah.
And from your perspective, like what would be the top three things you think that people need to focus on if they really want to build generational wealth?
Well, for one, budget, right? Like if you know that this is your rent and these are your expenses per month, you shouldn't be out in the club or going out to eat every day, right? That's one. But because budgeting is also going to allow you to see where your money goes and allow you to see how much you can save. So I think evaluating your finances and using them as a blueprint to see where you stand is going to be extremely important. Another second thing that I would personally do is reading. Begin to reading about finance and how and what does that look like, and understanding, honestly, setting personal financial goals. Like every year, I have a certain savings goal that I have to have. If I don't hit that goal, then some of these items is going back to the store. um, so, making sure that I'm also setting goals, financial goals for myself. Because once I set the financial goal for myself, then I can come up with a plan of action on how to attack to make sure that that goal is completely executed. And my third one, I would say stay in your lane. Stay in your lane in terms of don't stop keeping up with the Joneses. That's really what it is. A lot of us are really trying to keep up when we ain't got no business trying to keep up with the Kardashians.
I mean, it feels like, that's a bad habit that's affiliated with, African American culture though. Like that could be a whole show on why, individuals in our culture feel like, the best way to express wealth is through material things. And
Right.
we all know that that's not true, but at the same time, I always have a lot of understanding and empathy for that person or kid that really grew up with nothing, and then they can get their hands on something, and maybe a nice car makes them feel like they're wealthy. So because it's always an emotional connection to everything. So I try to see it both ways, but at the same time, I mean, like you said, if it's about generational wealth, then you really should be putting pillars in place that will solidify your future, and not just be looking at things that are temporarily in place.
Like, perfect example. I don't believe in having a party for a 1, 2, 3-year-old child that costs $5,000, $10,000. Do you have $5,000 to $10,000 for your child in a savings account? Even if the party is $600, $700, $800. Does your child have any stocks? Does your child have any bonds? Do you have a college savings account for this child? If the answer is no, which is 9 times out of 10, you don't need to be throwing no $800 party for no kid who ain't gonna remember nothing. Because what they're going to remember is years later, my mother was saving money for me from day one. Now I can go buy a car. Now I can go to college. Now maybe some of that money that was saved, I could put a down payment on a home where I could build my family, and I can begin to build generational wealth. That's how wealth begins. I was watching, especially during prom season, these parents, well, I didn't go to my prom, or, whatever the case may be, and you spending $16,000 on a prom send off. Did you put that same $16,000 on that student account?
Yep. Mm.
No, because you want a payment plan.
Right.
When you ain't have to be on no payment plan, you could have sent that money that you want to do this prom send off for and put it to the actual education. If you're spending more money on things that don't make sense and your savings account does not match that, you should not be doing that.
Very good point. Very good point.
My opinion.
Yeah, I think, and I would actually sign on to that, because, like you said, it's really about decision making and priorities, right? And at the end of the day, the most important thing, specifically as a parent, is you want to make sure that you're setting your kid up for a future that's better than the one the present that you have. So, like you said, that takes a lot of thought, and not leaning into these little temporary band-aids of pleasure, and really focusing on what's the long-term goal here. So I get it.
It cracks me up. Like, how you planning a party for a little child and you ain't got no car?
Right.
You could have went to the auction and got you a little $600, $700 car.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, you want to throw a party for your child.
Right.
That's not financial sense. That doesn't make sense at all. But these are the times that we're living in. This is the world that we're living in.
But you know what? That's why we have people like you, Jessica, like to try to reshuffle the deck and kind of steer people in the right direction. Because again, if you've never been exposed to some of the things that we're talking about, and you don't know exactly where to start, then I can kind of understand too how those people are just kind of floating around in no man's land, because they don't really they haven't ever been taught, and they haven't been guided. So talk to me more about your organization in general. What are the goals there?
Well, our goal, what I do every year, I mentor kids ages 9 through 24. And now actually some of my kids are older than 24 because I've had them since they were little. And what I do is I expose them to a world of opportunity. I want them to dream bigger than their zip code. I never want them to be a product of their environment. And my program allows them to understand that their dreams are valid and that you can be the next Kamala Harris. You can be the next Supreme Court. I forgot how to say her name, but Justice. And what we do is we do college tours, we do monthly educational programs. I even teach life-changing summer camp for DC residents ages 9 through 13. And not only do we go on these amazing field trips, but we also pouring into them life skills that allow them to be better in the classroom, allow them to be able to see what their future can be, because, a lot of times we've been focused on the older group because they're quickly graduating, right? But really it starts as a little child. So just planting the seeds into these Black youth so that they can grow and blossom is one of our biggest principles of what we do at the College Gurl Foundation. We're gearing up for our college tour. We're raising money to make sure that we have a phenomenal year this year. We take kids on an all expense paid 4-day trip with a 56 passenger bus with my face on it and all my wigs. And all the students' faces on it. And they stay in 4 or 5 star hotels. They eat the best food. They go to HBCU homecomings. They fellowship. They network with one another. And ultimately, I built the College Gurl Foundation to be a family. This is a family. This is a safe space. This is where we can learn together. We can grow together. I even share my personal life with them because as a leader, I need to be just as personable so that they want to share, they want to be a part, and they also can see that they can be cool and smart. So that's what we do here at the College Gurl Foundation.
Yeah, I like your approach. It feels like you're always trying to expose the youth to more visual outcomes, to give them a goal, to give them something to aspire to. Because when people see what life can be, then it'll always be locked in there, and they'll always be like, yeah, I want to get back to that. So I can see how that's really motivational, and I think that's a brilliant approach.
Yeah, and just to see them grow. I mean, I remember my first time, the first, when I started College Girl Foundation, we didn't have much. We had a little small black bus with plugs that didn't work, right? But I was going to go on this college tour and I was going to take these Black kids. And I remember one of my mentees, Janae, her mom didn't have the financial means to call off work, to fly to her dream school, Spelman College, and take the time to take her on a college tour. And it was because of my program that she was able to go on that trip. And 4 years later, I sat front row and watched her graduate from Spelman College. And now she works for me in the summertime as a teacher, as one of our program coordinators with the little children. And she's getting a master's at American, and she's an elementary school teacher all at the same time. So just seeing how programs like this do work, and praying that more programs like mine get the funding, get the recognition that we need so that we can impact more lives, right? Especially juvenile crime. I don't know where you're based, but I'm based here in DC, and juvenile crime right now is at an all-time high here in the DMV. And these students, growing up, we had Boys and Girls Club, we had YMCA, we had more extracurricular activities, we had wood shop, we had childcare class, cook class, we had all those type of things. And as you look up now, most of these schools have been stripped of those resources. I mean, and in different states, they're even stripping different parts of American education. So it is important as a president of a nonprofit giving back to the community that we still go back to our roots and instill these basic values into these kids so that they have an opportunity.
Yeah, we're based in DC too. So, I mean, I feel you. I don't know about that mayor you guys have. We're on the outskirts. I'm in Northern Virginia. But I hear you. Like, back in the day with Marion Barry, and that's way back in the day, people. But he used to just institute a lot of different programs throughout the city to keep the youth preoccupied, specifically in the summertime. And I think everybody understood that helped lower crime, because if a kid has way too much time on their hands, what are they going to do? And now, Jessica's saying that a lot of those programs are being stripped away for budgetary reasons, and that's the politics of it. I think that's really sad, and hopefully we'll come full circle and people will start to understand that you just have to invest in the youth to keep them out of trouble and give them a future. But we'll see how that turns out. Question for you, and I know it's going to be controversial, and everybody's going to try to step to me. Let me tell y'all something. I graduated from Bowie State University. It is an HBCU. So let's just stop it before you try to go in on me. But here's a question to you, though, Jessica, because, and I'll tell you the thought behind this question. But first of all, so how do you feel about the comparisons as it relates to, financial prosperity between going to an HBCU and going to a non-HBCU school? How do you feel like about those two different realms of education? And do you think one could be more beneficial than the other?
Of course, I do think that one may be more beneficial. They all both have their perks, right? Going to PWI, you're going to have a great network. They have way more money. So you're probably going to graduate with less student loan debt, right? Going to HBCU, everybody ain't got no money. And we all fighting for the same scholarships, right? However, the culture, the experience, the history that you will experience at an HBCU is something that money can't buy, right? So it really all depends on what are your values at the time, right? If it's more so on saving money, then of course I'm going to go to the PWI who gave me the most money, right? And maybe if I could choose a PWI like something that's like John Hopkins that's close to Bowie State, I can still party over there at Bowie State, right? Now I won't be a part of the culture every single day, but I'm close to it. But on the back end, I'm not graduating with a lot of student loan debt. The network, it all depends on what your values are. Like if you're really big into sports, like HBCUs are, not necessarily big sports houses, whereas University of Maryland College Park football team, I mean, their stadium is sitting like a regular NFL stadium. So if that's one of your biggest things that's important to you, then you go to a PWI. If culture and history and struggle is important to you, then you're gonna go to an HBCU. It just really all depends on what your values are at the time that you're applying to college.
I definitely respect that. I think that, again, when it comes to our HBCUs, they just don't get the funding and credibility that they should. I mean, I'm loving the fact that, Kamala Harris is putting a lot of shine on Howard University. Like everybody is starting to see that, a HBCU can produce excellence, and we've all known that forever, right? But again, the culture has always been underappreciated. And the only reason why I asked you that is because my younger daughter, or my oldest daughter now, when I remember when she had a choice and she ended up going to the University of Virginia, UVA for you guys. And basically, when she graduated, I could just see a different lane that they were giving her, and it was truly, like when I went to grad school and I came out of grad school, I attended job fairs on campus. When she graduated undergrad, she had JP Morgan Chase lined up waiting to give her a job, amongst other Fortune 500 companies, right? It opened my eyes to just the exposure that different universities have, But I'm also piggybacking on what you're saying. I never, ever disrespected my college because I appreciated it. If you're really trying to understand the culture, our background, and just get that whole bonding experience, then yes, you should definitely attend an HBCU. I would just say now at this juncture, explore all your options. Don't go to HBCU just because your boy going. Like go to the school that fits you best, first of all. But definitely just understand that you have to think outside the box when it comes to education, because every school isn't, treated equivalently, in the real world.
But we also have to think about it too. When you're talking about HBCUs, you have two different types of HBCUs. You have private and you have public, right? Bowie State University's campus, gorgeous. Okay, can we just talk about how nice Bowie State is? And it's like a hidden gem, right? I recently took the babies from summer camp to Morgan State University. Morgan State's president is doing phenomenal things up there, right? But I mean, their facilities, stellar, absolutely stellar. A&T, state of the art, everything. Howard University, Spelman College, right? All these private institutions who have to survive off of endowments and and things of that nature. So it also depends too, what school do you want to go to? Because as a state school, there's certain state laws that Bowie and Morgan and all that have to adhere to. Whereas some of these private HBCUs, they can do their own thing. You know what I'm saying? Some things get swept under the rug. Everything is not so public. They don't have to necessarily update their facilities. They don't have to have state of the art this, state of the art that. So there's also a breakdown too when you're talking about HBCUs in general. What kind of experience do you want? Do you want housing or you don't want housing? If you want housing and nice housing, you're going to go to Bowie State. You just want shelter, you may go to a private HBCU, right? That's struggling. But I mean, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm being serious. Uh, but that's you have to also understand there is a huge difference between when we're talking about PWIs are always going to be PWIs. Now, mind you, PWIs got their stuff with them too now. We ain't going to let them off the hook. They just got more money to put up so we don't know what's going on, right? Whereas we going to put ourselves on blast. So we going to go on Twitter and talk about our own institutions and dog them. So, and not because that's because we've been fighting all our life. We had to fight. So when you're talking about HBCUs, it really depends on, we could say PWI versus HBCU, but also there's a breakdown, there's a subcategory in that between private HBCUs and public HBCUs, because those are two different experiences.
Excellent point. Excellent point. So tell me what's next for your organization. Where will we see you in 5 years? Where are you trying to take it?
Around the nation. I want College Gurl to, well, for one, I'm from New Jersey, so I'm very passionate about, bringing my college tour, back home and bringing some kids from Jersey down to this DC area and bringing them back, just growing the program, mentoring more Black youth, getting more funding, making more strides, being more of an educational advocate. As College Gurl personally, I've been working on like a HBCU homecoming docuseries that I'm trying to work on a cartoon. Just trying to really put education on the map. Like, college is still cool. Education is still cool. And even if you're not going to go get an education, be a learner of life. Do something. Do like, and I understand college isn't for everybody. So I'm not always going to just project that onto people, but have some type of plan. And I want to be that person that helps these young Black youth develop that plan, so that they can have some type of job security. They can have some type of generational wealth. They could be different, let our ancestors be proud of us. They worked hard and walked miles, for us to get to this point, and we need to repay them back by doing the right thing.
Absolutely. Well said. Do you have any websites on the top of your head that basically people should really go to if they're trying to find that scholarship or free money?
Well, for one, I mean, I do know a couple Instagrams like HBCU Money Guide. Scholly was a scholarship app. Most of these institutions, they should be looking at the institution's financial aid websites, to see what packages that, they may be available. Like, for instance, when I was working at Howard, if you had a 3.0 and I think it was like 1100 on the SAT, automatically you got free tuition, right? And then if you had higher SAT and GPA, then it was tuition and room and board, and it was just tiers. So I would definitely, check with the prospective institutions that you plan on going to see what opportunities are available. Most major corporations, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Burger King, they all have big scholarships. So, just checking those out, talking to your parents, like asking their job. Many jobs, HR departments give maybe $500 a class for your dependent to go to school and at least complete it, each class with a C. So, just starting checking local organizations. College Gurl Foundation, perfect example. I give scholarships through my partnership with Dark and Lovely to Black women all around the nation. So just go out there and do the research. It's out there.
I appreciate that. Well, you know what? I have to tell you, Jessica, from the bottom of my heart, I always love any entrepreneur that's really trying to give back to the community and the culture. It's very, very important for all of us. And I know people want to say something about that too, but listen, all cultures reinforce their own culture, and you definitely have to do the same thing in African American culture, Black culture. So I appreciate you for that. Everybody that's going to be trying to find you after they hear this interview, where exactly can they find you, Jessica?
You can find me on Instagram at College Gurl. It's GURLJB. So at College Gurl JB, the girls with the U. My foundation is College Gurl Foundation on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. My website, collegegurl.com and collegegurlfoundation.org. Our application for our college tour is open for the next couple weeks. I encourage any DMV student that's been 10th through 12th grade to apply to be a part of my crew of scholars, because I mean, who would want to be a part of my crew of scholars?
Okay, everyone, like I told you, I'll always bring you the best. Now, we just gave you, again, a masterclass on getting your education, financing your education, so you can create generational wealth. I want to appreciate you again, Jessica Brown, for coming on to my show. Remember, hit that like button, because we want to see you and we want to see more Jessicas on the show. So you have to hit that like button, all right? Now remember, this is Marcel Clark. This is Hustle and Grow. Remember, if hustling's in your DNA, ride with me and watch us grow.